Are you a cat lover who loves the idea of owning your own cat cafe? Then this is the podcast for you. Join me, Angeli Rodriguez, owner of the Woody Whisker Cat Cafe and author of the book Drinks and Whiskers, as I walk you through my tips and tricks to help you open a successful cat cafe. Are you ready? Let's do this. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Drinks and Whiskers podcast, the place to be to get the inside scoop on what it's like to open and run a successful cat cafe. I'm your host, Angeli Rodriguez, and I'm so excited to introduce today's guest on the podcast, Carin Nelson. Carin is the cat lady behind Hide and Scratch, a brand specializing in cat toys your cat will love. From cardboard cat scratchers that don't make a mess to fancy cat toys infused with Silvervine, Hide and Scratch has the cat toys your cat will want to play with. Carin used her knowledge and business acumen to grow Hide and Scratch from a tiny little barely there business to a global brand. Believe it or not, this is a one cat lady show. And get this, Carin spends most of her time in Spain and London. So welcome to the show, and thank you so much for being here today, Carin.
Thank you. This is so much fun, which is like I feel like I say this all the time when it comes to work stuff these days, where it's like this is just so much fun.
I love, isn't it nice to love your job, right? Isn't it a great feeling?
It is, although I'm also still like I mean, well, the little intro you gave there was the best commercial I could ask for, like of things. But it's just I always still like when people ask me to introduce myself or like, wait, what do you do for like jobs? I just always I just can't even still say what I do with a straight face just because I can't quite believe
I know.
it.
Well, it was so much fun. Like, I had the pleasure of meeting you at the Space Cats convention in Cocoa, Florida this past January. And you just had the coolest gadgets in your booth. You had an iPad with a Wheel of Fortune style wheel where you could win free stuff, which was so cool. And I left with a packet of like catnip mice, which my cats have loved to death. I just want to show it really here for the people on YouTube to see. Like, it used to have a little tail. There were three of them. Now there's just one. It's missing its tail, but the cats loved it to death. And I also got a hide and scratch. I just want to show
Oh,
it really
you've got one
fast.
right there.
Yeah, a hide and scratch scratcher. And what I love about this is that the cats use it and it doesn't make a mess. You know how you end up with all those little pieces of cardboard all over your floor? Well, that's not the case with the hide and scratch. So I just wanted to kind of plug you a little bit and show off some of the things that your business can do. But how did you get started with hide and scratch?
Oh, still such a story that I can't quite believe. And I guess I should ask like how long of an answer do you want? Like do you
You
want
can, as long as you want, as long as you want.
well, no, it could be hours in terms of like the full explanation. The short answer is that I was starting, I had gotten the idea that I kind of wanted to get like some sort of small online business, was looking into the idea of doing this with the concept of like this people are always talking about, can you find a way to make passive income? Where
Mm-hmm.
I had a whole corporate career. I kind of left the corporate world back in 2017, was doing online work, and so had a lot of freedom and flexibility, but I was
Mm-hmm.
still trading time for money, is what people talk about. Also working on building somebody else's business. And I was like, well, wait, could I come up with something like on my own? And I
Right.
had learned from someone about this concept of like the fact that you can actually buy a business. And that's what a lot of people don't realize. I don't really broadcast it, but I didn't come up with the product idea. I didn't start the business. I actually bought it from somebody else. And a lot of people are like, wait a minute, you can buy an online business? Yeah. So I had learned about this actually on a dive boat in Costa Rica. This is also where the story can get really long. But had started browsing different websites where you could buy these businesses because people have always told me, they're like, oh my gosh, you're an entrepreneur. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, well, yeah, I mean, I could see myself having my own business, but I don't have an idea for something. And so that's where I started just looking at different things. I was like, well, I know how to do a lot of stuff. I'm really good at
Mm-hmm.
growing businesses.
Right.
And so could I find something online? And there's a lot of different business models for things online. I wasn't initially thinking I wanted a product-based business. It was
Mm-hmm.
just a byproduct of after looking at a bunch of different things. This one actually just kind of popped up and met all the criteria for what I was looking for. And actually, I was not specifically looking for a cat-based business. I've been a cat person my entire life, and so it was more of I was approaching it from just I mean, a project really. I was looking for something just to learn a little bit how like e-commerce worked or the world of online business. And then when this one kind of came across a listing, I was like, oh my gosh, this is perfect on so many fronts. And then the fact that it's a cat business, like I couldn't script this better.
Right.
So that's how, yeah, someone else had started it. Had come up with the idea, was working on it with their fiance, and then I think had gotten to the point where like they had the idea, but maybe they weren't so much the business people to really grow it. I think they also had some things change in their life, so they were looking to recoup some of their money and hand it off
Hmm.
to somebody that could maybe go do something with it. And in my case, it was, I mean, it was really small, so it wasn't that expensive. And I was like, okay, well, wait, this is great, and I could see what I could do with it to maybe improve some things.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's how that came about. Where yeah, the idea wasn't initially mine, but I saw this, I was like, ooh, wait, this is a really cool idea and a really great idea. I actually had a cat that that loved sleeping on just the scratcher boards. So when I saw this and I was like, wait, it's a scratcher and a bed and a box. Oh, this is fantastic.
Yeah. Right.
It's like all of these things. So yeah, that was back in 2020 that I took over the business, and I think the guy that started things was maybe selling about 100 boxes a month.
Uh-huh.
And I now sell over 100 a day. Um,
That's awesome. That
yeah.
is so awesome.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's been, I mean, it's been a long journey, and that didn't happen overnight. And a lot of people are always like, ooh, wait, this is fantastic. And they're like, well, how does this goal go of like, having passive income? And at the moment, it is not passive income. I've been working my butt off for like
Right.
3 years,
Absolutely. No, I get
oh,
it.
five
Yeah.
years now. What year is it? My gosh, we're in 2025.
2025.
Okay.
5 years. So you
5
bought it in
years.
2020?
Yeah, at the very end of 2020, that's also a fun story that I could go into about how this kind of came about. I was actually
Please do. Please do. No,
well, no,
that sounds
I
amazing.
was
Yeah.
I was sharing a house with some friends on a Spanish island because they had my friends that live up in London, and they had escaped the pandemic, and so we were yeah, just kind of all hanging out in this villa that we could rent for pretty cheap. And
Wow.
most everybody had gone back to London, and it's just me and we had this one friend of mine. We didn't know each other super well, but the house was big enough that you kind of didn't always run into each other. And so I think
Yeah.
it was a Saturday morning where we finally ran into each other around like 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. He's like, "What have you been doing all morning?" I was like, buying a business." And he's like, "I'm sorry, what?" And I was
Wow.
like, well, yeah. And so then I explained things a little bit further, and he thought I was a little crazy. And I mean, all these friends think I'm a little crazy in some way, shape, or form. But and I
Hey,
broke it down to
I
him. I
get
was like,
it.
well,
Yeah.
look, I'm looking at this as like I learn a lot. I'm a type of person who learns really well hands-on, and when I can
Yeah.
figure something out and kind of go from a starting place. So just the whole concept of even like setting up an Amazon store, like it just being having something that existed initially that then I can work with is the best kind of class for me. So
Hmm.
with the objective of just wanting to learn like how Amazon works and how e-commerce works, having something that existed, I was kind of looking at this initially as like just a hands-on course to learn
Hmm.
how this all worked. And then maybe down the road, I would maybe buy a slightly larger business that was making an okay amount of money each month.
Hmm. Yeah.
But at this point, since this was all new, I didn't want to invest that much money into something when I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah.
Because my whole
Yeah.
background was in like professional services and that type of thing. So this world of like selling actual products that require manufacturing and all of
Right.
this was all like just totally different.
Yeah, and that's a whole different like ball game from what I do too. So like that's fascinating. And when I said earlier that I get it, when you said that people thought you were crazy, I was not agreeing with them. I was agreeing with you in the sense that people thought I was crazy. I had a corporate job too, and with benefits and retirement and like everything was going to be like if I could just hang on, but I like literally wanted to die inside. So when I decided to open up a cat cafe, most people thought I was crazy walking away from
Well,
a
but
really big corporate job.
it
So
takes
I
guts though. And
understand
that's
that.
a lot of people tell me that it was like really brave of me to like walk away from my corporate job and go do something different. The circumstances in which things played out for me, I
Hmm.
feel like it made it much easier where I actually didn't
Hmm.
know what I wanted to do when I stepped away from corporate. The initial plan was just to take some time off for the first time in
Yeah.
20 some years,
Wow.
and then
Yeah.
start looking at doing some things. But in my case, it was, well, actually, my condo building in Chicago had been bought out by a developer, is what paid off my mortgage. I no longer had a home, and I made enough money from that sale to pay off my graduate school loans. You've
Yay!
got an MBA, you know how this works.
Yes.
Uh, So was debt free in one fell swoop, but it wasn't like, oh my gosh, let me quit my job and figure out how to replace my income or figure out how to like cover the cost of things. Like I
Hmm.
was also getting kicked out of my house. So I either had to find a new place to leave, but that's when I actually went to, I don't know, remember how much we talked about this when we met
Hmm.
at Space Cats, but I actually went to Costa Rica initially for a bit and just took some time off and didn't work. And that's when I
Right.
then started doing a couple other things and then ultimately ended up owning Hide and Scratch.
Hide and scratch.
Um,
Yeah.
but it wasn't like I have so much awe, or I'm always impressed by people who like make a significant change in their life when the pieces don't just fall into place like they did for me. Like when you have to actually put the pieces in place or kind of
Hmm.
take that leap, like
Yes.
it's a different deal. And I knew like
Yes.
I was burnt out at work and just kind of beyond it, but I also could very much go back to my old job. That's also where like I had a lot of things that just
That's great. You
made
had
life
plan
easier.
B and plan C, right? So
Yes.
that's also
Oh,
very smart. You can't just like nobody recommends you just take the leap and not have a backup plan. There was always a backup plan. It's like, oh well, you just kind of
yeah.
absorb the loss
Yeah.
and move on.
Well, and I guess
Um,
a lot of people don't see that. Like, because that's what I
yeah,
like, and I explain to people, I'm like, I had a couple different safety nets in place where it wasn't just like, let me
that's
throw
so
caution to the
smart.
wind and go do this, but it also like it can seem that way sometimes to people
Hmm.
like from the outside. But
Well, and that's why I'm very appreciative that you shared your story with us so that people can learn about, okay, well, what kind of, safety nets can I have that are, that can help me, right? If I do want to take this leap. So I think that's actually very helpful information for the people listening to this podcast too. So what do you find most exciting about owning your own business?
oof, most exciting, most enjoyable. I mean, like, so for me, it's like, well, it's just how much fun it is.
Yeah. And you can
Um,
tell that you have fun because I've read your website and like everything is just so thinking adorable. Like the way you describe your products and your about page where you tell your story and you have your little baby pictures. It's just
I still
it's
can't believe
really
I
like
put those on
hard
the
to make
website, but I
stuff
was like, it's part of the
interesting.
story.
I love it. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I mean, for me, it's well, there's a couple of different things of it. One is like I have always been just kind of like a puzzle solver,
Hmm.
and really running your own business is just a whole variety of puzzles to solve and things to figure out. And it's like, oh, okay, well, that's not working. How do I go do this?
Right. Right.
Or I want to do this. Okay, well, wait, I can't do that until I do this. Or apparently this is required in order to go do this, and I don't have that yet. So then I need to
Hmm.
do this. And it's unraveling things like this is just
Right.
kind of how it all goes.
Right.
So yeah, being the kind of the puzzle solving bit of it is just like is really well suited to just me, and I get a lot of enjoyment and like satisfaction out of that.
Yeah.
And then I guess the other piece of it is also where I just was not that suited to the corporate world. I'm actually not even sure how I lasted as long as I did, like working with clients and those types of things. Um, the is just the being able to do things without having to run it past a whole group of people and like take weeks and months to figure out how to like do it.
Hmm.
Where if I decide I want to change something on the website, I just go change it on the
You
website.
just go change it on the
I
web. You
like,
just go do it.
or I just do that. Or even last week, well, this is I'm working on a new product at the moment.
Hmm.
But it's literally this. I'm like, I had an idea and like, okay, I shared the idea with a friend and kind of ran this together and then put the drawing together and sent it to my manufacturer. And he comes back with a prototype and I'm like, oh, wait, sweet. This all happened like so easy.
So
Like
easy. Yeah.
it's easy to do things when you don't have to get a whole group of people together and go through the whole all of the like just the bureaucracy of like approvals and building
Yeah.
coalitions and like blah 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 blah,
Mm.
and persuading all these other people that it's a good idea. Now, there's
Yeah.
some downsides to that too. You can get yourself into trouble when you don't have people like kind of helping you
Yeah.
run some checks on things.
Right.
But
Right.
like, yeah, the being able to just do something
Hmm.
is is fantastic. And then I guess also the other side of things is of just being able to not do anything if you want to, where if I'm just having a bad day, I just don't do anything for the day. So
That sounds so nice. Oh, what is the most important lesson that you have learned in your business so far?
ooh, I
And if you have more than one, feel free to share more than one.
mean, there could be a whole bunch.
I love
Um,
it.
I mean, can I do the politician thing and switch that around into a slightly different question?
Sure.
Do you like,
Yeah.
no, I like I would think about it more in terms of like advice. Like, I mean, there's a bunch of lessons that I've learned, but like
Yeah.
if I could turn it into like a piece of advice for other people that are thinking about starting their businesses is, I mean, tr like find something that is like truly fun.
Hmm.
I mean, and it's hard to like be like, ooh, look, I want to go find a business that's like something fun for me. Like you can't quite think about it like in that direction. It's more like if you start focusing on the things that you do really enjoy, and then I guess think about how could you turn that into something
Hmm.
is maybe the way to go about doing it.
Hmm.
Um, because like it is possible. I mean, I remember being like younger and everyone's like, "Oh yeah, like figure out how to make money doing what you love and like you'll never work a day in your life." Like, I mean, that is
Yes.
really true.
Yes.
Although it was also a very, I guess when I was younger, I always hated that piece of advice too. I'm like, well, if I could make money doing what I liked, like yeah, everything would be easy.
I would just be reading
Um,
books all day. Yeah.
which actually, I mean, there's ways to come about that. Like
Yeah.
I mean, just to, like the type of
Books
work
I
I was
want
like,
to read. Books I
right.
want to read.
But I mean, this is hard to condense down, and this is also where like I don't do great with public speaking because my thoughts are sometimes like
No,
all
you're
over the
doing
place.
great. I love
But
this.
the well, yeah, I mean, even just talking about reading books. So the main job that I've been doing for like the last 5 years before I just went like full time on hide and scratch was also a job that I could not believe that I was getting paid money to do,
Hmm.
where I was actually reviewing MBA applications for people. And so reading essays and learning
Hmm.
about people's lives and then getting to tell them what was wrong with it
Uh-huh.
or like what where something didn't make sense and kind of pointing out the errors and things. And this was
Hmm.
something where yeah, this was also something like I mean, back in my old life when somebody put a presentation up on the board and if there was an error, like a typo or
Yeah.
like something out of alignment, it was always just be like, that's just what jumps out to me.
Yeah.
So, you know, you make the joke about like, I mean, I'd be reading books all the time, but
Yeah.
like there are literally jobs that exist that you could be doing this and like giving feedback to people on books and like
Mm.
all of this if you were going down a different career path. So I guess a lot of it is just people don't realize like how many things there are out there. But yeah, I guess that would be a piece of advice. And
That's
then
great. No, that's great advice.
um I guess I'll throw it into a lesson too. I did spend a bunch of money on a couple of things last year that I should not have. Because I kind of got excited about it.
Mm.
And this is where it can be kind of dangerous, where you don't need to run it
Yes.
past anybody if it's
Yes.
yourself. And yeah, I should have asked some more questions because it was a couple things that I didn't know that much about, and I kind of didn't realize how much I didn't know about it. And I did ask some friends that knew some more things
Yeah.
for help, but given kind of the amount of investment it was, I should have done a little bit more.
Right. No, I've done that too in my time when, especially when it comes to finding things to sell in my cat cafe,
Mm.
because you always want to have a little merchandise section where you have, your little branded items like, cups and t-shirts and things like that. And those are always usually the easiest things to sell. But I've also made purchases, because people come by and they try and sell you stuff. And sometimes you have just some really good salespeople and you end up with a bunch of stuff that you're like, why did I buy this? Like, and I have like old inventory
Oh
that
no.
I have not been able to like unload, and it's been years. And my husband's like, "Why did you do this?" And I'm like, "I'm sorry." But yeah,
Yeah,
but you
it's
live and
easy
you
to get
learn.
excited about things.
Yeah,
And yeah, you live and you learn and that's where it's kind of the okay,
exactly.
not gonna make that mistake again.
Exactly.
So,
However, that is not the case with the hide and scratch stuff that I bought because you do wholesale, and I have the catnip mice, I have the silvervine balls, and then the silvervine sticks.
yes,
Um,
you're officially my first whole customer. Or
Woohoo!
my first retailer. What do they call these? My first stockist, I guess is the
Yeah.
technical term in
Oh,
the
I
world of
didn't know that.
wholesale.
I thought I
Yeah.
was a wholesaler, but no, no, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yes. So I have had a good experience working with you, and the stuff is going off the shelves.
Awesome.
We just had spring break this past week, and we sold a couple of your items, so that's actually really really good, because some of the stuff that I've purchased in the past has not moved. what your stuff does. So, if anybody is interested in doing wholesale with you, because these products are good to have at a cat cafe, cat toys and things people like to bring back little things for their cats at home. How would they find you if they wanted to do that?
I actually have a page all set up on the website now where I
Hmm.
think we skipped over that and I just gave you the link directly to it. But if you go to hideandscratch.com,
Hmm.
down at the bottom, there is a link that says wholesale.
Excellent. And we'll make
Um,
sure to put that in the podcast description
in
so
the lower
everybody has
menu.
it.
Yep. And then there's
Yep.
just a quick form for somebody to fill out just with your name, email, and company. And then it'll send you all of the details on how to access the order form and all the information and all that.
Perfect. That is perfect.
But yeah, I'm actually this is kind of my current project that I'm super excited about where
Awesome.
the well, Space Cats was my first like consumer show, and then I'm
Yeah.
signed up to go to CatCon in August as well. So
Oh,
I'll be exhibiting at CatCon, which is going to be like a whole thing. But then in line with getting things set up just for wholesale, I'm actually going to be going to a B2B show as well,
okay.
Super Zoo it's actually in Las Vegas in August, where
Wow. So you
apparently
have
like
two in August? You have
yeah.
two
Well,
conventions.
that worked out well for me because they're actually like a week and a half apart because the one's
Perfect.
on a weekend and the one's during a week. So the fact that I can do that in two trips or one trip
In one trip.
as
Yeah.
as opposed to separate trips kind of works out really well. But I'm
That's
excited to
nice.
see what happens there because a lot of actually I think like some cat cafes have started showing up as attendees to the
Hmm.
show because you could see just what different products are going like it's all wholesale or companies selling wholesale products for
Hmm.
retailers for the most part.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
So
That's exciting.
yeah.
Well, I will catch up with you on that after our little show. But is there any other advice that you have for our listeners, and what they want to grow how they want to grow their business or anything like that?
Ooh, I can't think of anything specific at the moment, but also like, well, we were chatting briefly before we started recording just about how the yeah, just the business of a cat cafe, like and running that just kind of blows my mind in terms of, well, reading your book and just I think it's like, oh yeah, I didn't think about like all of those details that are involved like in this where
There is a lot.
it's
Yeah.
different. I mean, each business has its own complexities, and that's where I guess in my case, like one of the things I've had to learn a whole bunch of things about is like shipping and importation
Yeah.
and oh, dealing with like shipping rate changes and because
Hmm.
I order product by the container load at the moment and like my
Wow.
last inventory order, yeah, that has more tariffs on it.
Oh my
So
gosh.
costs are going up and all those types of things. So it's always just I mean, there is a lot of logistics and details and math involved
Yeah.
in things. But yeah, I guess the other thing for businesses, I mean, if people are curious, oh, th yeah, this actually would be the big piece of business.
Hmm.
A lot of people think that in order to start a business, you need to like go into it like 100% initially. I
Hmm.
feel like this is a misconception where it's like you hear the stories about the people who quit their job and then like go do something totally different.
Hmm. That's me. Yep.
Yeah, well, I feel like I mean that's one way to do things, and that's how
Yep.
you hear a lot about those. But I think the ones that you don't maybe hear so much about is like, is there a way to start things on the side? Like that's a big way to bring down risk. Where that's
Yes.
how this came about in just in my world, where hide and scratch has been the side thing for me
Hmm.
for really 5 years. I mean, I've only just gone full time on this year and stepped away from my other job. But I also had the situation where it's like, okay, well, maybe my prior job was like, yeah, 90% of the time. And then I was doing a little bit with hide and scratch on the side. And then over the last several years, it's like trying to draw a graph or a picture with my hands where it was
Got
like,
it.
the one is big and the one is little. And
Yes.
then like it changed like this.
Yes. Yes.
I figured it out.
Yeah.
Um, so like, I mean, the more people can do something like that, that just greatly reduces the just
The
kind of like
risk
the
factor.
risk of, yeah, associated with things. And then also it gives you time to figure out like, is this working?
Hmm.
Um, yeah, just to prove things out and see like, is there potential for this? Because I mean, honestly, with hide and scratch, I didn't think there was initially. I was gonna when I got to the point of I was like, you know, selling a couple hundred boxes a month and like making a little bit of money each month. I was like, okay, this is cool.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah, a couple different things happened that like helped like totally kind of uh, skyrocketed, I guess, for a word. And it was
That's
just like,
great.
so the fact that it's as big as it is now and that it is my full-time job, it just, yeah, blows my mind.
That's
And that
amazing.
I'm selling in multiple countries, like working on getting global shipping setting up, and that, yeah, I'm making a living off of this is just, it still blows my mind.
It's just a dream come true. Well, thank you so much for sharing your experience with us. We've learned so much about Hide and Scratch, your products, and you know how you got started in doing this. And so we're just so grateful that you came on the show to share your experience. And hopefully this helps future cat cafe owners, you know, with their decisions and getting started, and hopefully it gives them the impetus to get going. So. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for having me. Like I said, this is
Absolutely.
just, it's so much fun.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of the Drinks and Whiskers podcast. If you enjoyed it, please take a moment to like this episode, subscribe, and leave an honest review. If you want more information, you can purchase the Drinks and Whiskers book right now on Amazon.com, or you can reach me at Angeli@wittywhisker.com. Now it's time to get out there and start your cat cafe dream. How will you warm hearts with a drink and a whisker?